Assalamu alaikum everyone. Moving on with other areas besides education towards transforming the environment that we Muslims find ourselves in here in Ontario. This is part 5 of this presentation, which I'm going to combine with part 6. Part 5 deals with gender interaction before marriage, and part 6 deals with marriage itself. So we've often been a barrier to gender interaction between Muslims and Muslimas. And in contrast, we've looked the other way when it's interreligious, particularly and hypocritically if it's a Muslim man and a non-Muslim woman. If we do this, we have to understand the only exposure that our children will have with the other gender will be through that of non-Muslims. So with this in mind, our young Muslim organizations need to be a little more understanding of the need for gender interaction, and we want to celebrate how proper adab is used. We want to encourage careful interaction with the opposite gender in an appropriate environment, and we want to inspire a love for proper adab in kids, and especially we need to work on the boys. And we also need to preserve and develop new places for guys only and girls only interaction as well. We want to treat it as a liberating space away from the influence of the opposite gender, and a place for deeper interactions with members of the same gender. Okay, and as I said, I'm going to combine part 5 with part 6. Part 6 is about marriage, and we need to do a lot of work on the issue of marriage. It's kind of become a clique now, as opposed to a rite of passage for young Muslims growing up. And we need to address that. There's just too much to address in this presentation, so I'm just going to leave us with a few thoughts. So we need to remember that in Islam, we consider that marriage is the only acceptable intimate relationship between a man and a woman. And as such, we need to make it much, much easier and allowed much, much earlier. I would say going into university. And we want to inspire our next generation with the following line: enter through the door as an honored guest, not through the window as a thief. That was a line that was said by an imam, a friend of mine, and we have to look around us and realize that right now that window is very wide open and that door is almost locked. Right now there are huge social, economic, and cultural pressures against an early marriage. Higher education is one such barrier. The expenses, both in a wedding and afterwards with married life, especially if you're living together by yourselves. We have large cultural biases against an early marriage, and then we have some trust issues within our communities. So some quick discussion points I wanted to bring up. Can we make our nikahs simpler? This is the most important custom we can pass on to our next generation, making our nikahs simpler. We are simply seeking to make our relationships halal very easily. We shouldn't have a whole lot of trouble in doing so. Can we make our walimas less costly? Can we explore even the possibility of having 2 or 3 simultaneous weddings in order to make the cost lower? I'd like to talk about mainstreaming Islamic courses on marriage. Seekers Hub again, and also Al-Maghrib Institute and others have some really good Islamic courses where the rights and responsibilities are not merely stated, they are inspired. We want to talk about how to address the economic and higher education implications of marriage. We all want our sisters to succeed in higher education. We all want our brothers to be able to support our sisters through this higher education period, and themselves, of course. And we need to talk about what sort of plans we can come up with as a community to help support that. We need to discuss, too, Planned Parenthood, especially during the university years, when there's nothing being earned. Planned Parenthood is maybe for some Muslims a controversial subject, but we do need to discuss it as a community. And then some of the grimmer aspects, some of the negative aspects that such a initiative might require studying is working against marital abuse and working to codify anger management strategies for our young men getting into a marriage, or young women for that matter. And once again, if you have any questions about Part 5 and Part 6 of this presentation, IslamicSexEdOntario@gmail.com is where you can send your queries. Thank you for listening in. Stay tuned for Part 7.